Well, I'll get underway. Good afternoon, councillors, staff, media, guests, and all those listening in from home. Welcome to the council meeting of the 1st of June 2022. And first of all, I'd like to call for apologies. But I see everyone is here, so no apologies. Next item, extraordinary business. Anyone have any extraordinary business they'd like to discuss? No. Declarations of interest. I will declare on today's agenda that of declarations of interest in the second public forum item, and I'll be vacating the chair and the deputy mayor will take over for that item. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and I'd like to declare an interest in item number 5, the vesting of Methven Skate Park. I'm the current chair of Kids Methven. I pretty much applied for most of the grants for the funding of the skate park, and while I don't have any financial interest, I will not have as much time. Well, I'll have more time, so that's why I'm declaring an interest in that.
Thank you. No other declarations of interest. Move on now to the public forum, and we have Cheryl Hull-Stivens wanting public forum today. So Cheryl, if you'd like to come forward, Hal as well if he wishes, and 5 minutes to speak, 5 minutes for questions. We have all your information that you've sent us. We have that in front of us, we've read it, so if you'd like to add anything further, or 5 minutes for your presentation, thanks. And just put your microphone on the button on the right hand side.
And we live stream.
And you also know this is being live streamed and recorded as well, as general practice. So Cheryl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Neil Brown and councillors. May I start with a prayer? Our Creator God, we thank you for the wonderful creation, including the water that has flowed since time began. We thank you for the fresh water that has flowed through our stock water races and drains from the mountains to the sea for over 130 years, and the abundance of life this supports, including flora and fauna. We ask that you bless this meeting. Your will be done, Lord. Lord, hear our prayer. So I have given you the notes, and we do have 191 signatures on the petition now, and emails that have been sent to Hamish. Those who could not sign in 7 days have provided a phone number, which we will give to you today. We also want to talk about biodiversity today and climate change. We have all these policies coming from central government for planning on biodiversity and climate change. We would like to understand the policies that Ashburton District Council have before you go and change anything else. Electric fishing and putting nets in the stock water race. Remove what's in the water, but that's only part of it. We the people ask Ashburton District Council how they will remove the insects, frogs and all the flora and fauna. We are talking now about climate change legislation, the National Policy Statement on Biodiversity and the National Policy Statement on Fresh Water. We would like to know and require an answer as to this council's policies before you shut down this water race that provides habitat, native flora and fauna, and requires protection by all of us to comply with these policies. We have the petition to present today, and so open to any questions.
And you're requesting that the water race does not get shut. That's what you're requesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's to be clear. Counts.
Yeah, and that these policies and information from We the People and 191 signatories get taken into consideration for Ashburton District Council policies.
Okay, thanks. Councillors, questions of Cheryl? Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cheryl, welcome, and welcome to your people that you've brought with you. Welcome. Cheryl, in your submission dated, or letter dated the 27th of May 2022, on the last page, at the top of the page, Selwyn District Council has a model that Ashburton could so easily adopt, including their funding policy. Why not get someone with the right procurement skills to cost benefit? They also require 100% of landowners to agree to shut off a stock water race before it can take place. How can I, what am I to take from that statement when I read on the Selwyn District Council website that you'll need an agreement with a minimum of 80% of affected property owners?
Well, there's several things that I see on the Selwyn Council website, Councillor Mackay. One of them being that if we were using their funding policy, the person that didn't want to shut their cows off the creek and was using pesticide on their creek would be paying for this costing of this whole process we're going through now, because that's what it says. And also there is a rate right across the district. I have got their costing somewhere, but I'm not sure whether I can find it in the 5 minutes we've got, but it's certainly all available there, and I've talked to the people there. And there is a different funding model that celebrates the uniqueness of the gravity-fed stock water races and their history, and then uses a flat rate across the district and then a rate for those who have it. And if your creek goes dry, you submit to council, you get the money back for that time when you didn't have the water. So it's a very, very different funding policy as far as I can see, but there are people who are much more qualified than me that would be able to look at that funding policy and see if it's a lot more fairer and supports our community outcomes as well as the biodiversity policies and climate change policies we've just talked about.
Supplementary. I'll try again, Mr Mayor, and I'll try again, Cheryl. In the fourth line down,
yes,
they, I presume, is the Selwyn District Council in your submission?
Yes.
Okay. Also require 100% of landowners to agree to shut off a stock water race before it can take place. Yet on their website, they say you will need agreement from 80% of affected property owners in order to progress the application for closure. Which one do I believe? I want to be quite frank. Sorry, Cheryl, which one? Your submission or the Council website?
I will check with the council and get a reply to you. I will check with the council and get a reply to you in writing.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got one or two questions, if I may. Thank you, Cheryl. On the first page of your submission to us, in about the fourth paragraph, you say there has been a reliable flow of water in this water race until very recent times. What changed?
Well, if you read the ecologist report, you'll see that when they came to do the ecology check, there was a board in the creek. Now, I don't know who put that board in there, but somebody put the board in there, and when it was removed, they came back and did the checks. So now and then we had that issue with somebody putting that board in the creek and blocking it off to come down that lane. We don't know who. We would ring the stock water rangers and they would fix it, but the board was definitely in the creek. We've photographed it, actually. I'd have to go through my photos to find it.
I don't doubt your word. Thank you for that. Just another question, if I may. You say on your second page, if you close this short area of drain, it will flood the Long Beach and boundary roads and other properties, causing damage and traffic hazards. How do we know that?
Well, that's what used to happen. And on our property, at our expense, we actually dug another channel because the flooding used to happen and it go right out in the road. In fact, we used to have so much water in our paddock, we had to rescue our sheep with a rowboat. It's hard to imagine now, but that's in our short time there. And the water would flood right out onto the road in front of our place along by the school. Anyone who's lived there in that time knows that was the case. And so by putting that other channel into our place, which I'm happy to show any of you, and I've even got photos of it, serving its purpose to stop flooding 1 year ago in May 31st, 2021, when we had that big rain up country, and our place, that creek and the extra channels that we dug served to carry that water through and on its way down to the sea.
Thank you. Can I?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the last page, you say, Cheryl, corporate greed and industrial farming practices, along with short-term thinking, has diminished our freshwater ecology. I'm not saying you're wrong with a pretty sweeping statement. Have you got any facts to back that up?
Well, I understand from other people who know a lot more than me that the central government policies that are being enforced into our areas are coming because they want to save those fragments of biodiversity that we have left. So when I was teaching in the schools about water and the water cycle and biodiversity, we were fortunate to have the International Global Year to celebrate biodiversity. The resources were spectacular, and one of the things that, you know, probably interests you, Councillor Cameron, was that one of the things identified is that in those plants, even in the mud of those 100-plus-year-old stock water races, we will find the medicines of the future, because potentially what we're using now, it's not working anymore, but the things we need are in these things that we have created over 100 years of stewardship, and to lose those now is disastrous. It's totally sad.
So you really, though, don't have any facts to put before me to change my mind about corporate greed and sweeping changes?
No, I don't think so. But I think if you go on that site and you look at the biodiversity values that were identified there, you'll get a broader picture than just mudfish and freshwater mussels, which serve their purpose. But the ecology of our land is way bigger than that. It's the pollinating insects, the trees, the birds, and all those little creatures that live in that mud.
Thank you. One last question, if I may, Mr.
One
Mayor.
last one. Yep.
In the report from the I can't remember the aquatic ecology, in the concluding remarks, says the ecological values in the Willoughby water race are low, with particularly low stream health scores. The ephemeral nature of the flow and the presence of perched culverts and bank spraying are probably main reasons for the low health score. But it does say that the ecological values of that race are low. Do you have any evidence to say that these people are wrong?
Well, I have the picture of the migrating eel that you don't just get when you turn off a creek and put a board in and then come back a few days later and do some testing. I have the bees, the insects, the frogs, the tui, and all the plants. Like, to do an ecological study without studying the wider ecology, just looking at those creatures, the water creatures that we identify, is a very minimalistic way to record the ecological values in 2022. It might have served the purpose 10 years ago, but it's no longer fit for purpose.
Thank you.
Got two more questions, then we need to wrap up. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cheryl, most of it I can understand what I see and what I read, but you've got a plan there as well. Can you explain that plan? I don't really know what you want to show with it.
Oh,
What exactly is it?
Councillor Brown, do you mean the original survey paper?
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you. So, talking to Ian McKenzie from ECAN, he suggested the only way that I can call it an historic waterway that fits under the freshwater regulations now is to get the original survey maps. And if you can see the water line on there, then it actually qualifies as a freshwater under the Freshwater Act. So we purchased the most original survey maps of that area from Lynn's, and it shows on there the blue line coming down the edge of our place. You can see there, which would have been the original drainage of that swamp that was later connected up with the channels of the stock water races. And so we believe that that means that we qualify under the Freshwater Act of New Zealand for protection for that environment.
Can you just ask? So that's basically the number 17? There's the number 17, that is your property?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're happy with the blue line, councillor? Where you can see the blue line? No. I struggle to see the blue line, but...
I can send through the original map because it probably hasn't scanned so well on my scanner.
That might be it, because we're just struggling to see a blue line.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Cheryl, and thank you for the documents that we received. I appreciate all the work that's gone into them. We had a report last year, 2021, with regards to when the council was reviewing closing it, and in it said there's 6 people affected by the water race, and 5 want it closed. Have you had an opportunity to speak to your neighbours about whether they've reviewed their decisions or changed their opinions of the water race closing or otherwise?
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Cameron. According to the aquatic report, there is only 4 affected landowners. One of them is the person who's petitioned the other people. One of them is us. One of them is David Geddes' dairy farm, and it appears that the ecologists are also recommending that they form a new water race through the middle of that dairy farm, so it bypasses our place, and it's called the New Willoughby Water Race. It's absurd. It makes no sense, but that's what we've been given in this report, because all it will do is destroy the frogs and eels, because he hasn't seen any for at least a decade or maybe longer, because his grandchildren have never seen or heard them. And the other landowner, we talk to them in lockdown up and down the road, but their gate is padlocked all the time. No one even knows who they are. I don't even know who they are, but we did have, like a lot of people, you met your neighbours in lockdown up and down the road with ponies and animals, and we haven't seen them since. So I don't know how they found the 6 affected parties, because the work that has already been done on this water race has diverted the water race along the road onto Long Beach Road. So it doesn't even affect some of those properties now. It's not even on their land, it's on the edge of the road. And the sad thing is that the person who started all of this cost at 344 could have also had that creek along the side of the road. It's only a matter of the creek moving that far or the fence moving that far, and we save so much.
Thank you, Cheryl. And we've now come to the end of the question to Councillor Rawlinson.
Just one short question. Yep. Thank you for all your work on this. You've just put a thought in my mind. That new blue line of the water race down through Geddes' property, is that race not there at present?
I don't know, but it doesn't make any sense at all to me. I can't see what you're achieving.
It's just I took it from the information in the report that because it's there now, that it was in place.
Why would it be called the New Willoughby Water Race? That's the absurd thing.
Don't ask me, I don't know.
Somebody must know.
Someone must know, yeah.
I tried to talk to the ecologists, but they're very young, and they said, look, we don't even know what our boss writes, because they misquoted me, and I never had a chance to challenge it. They said, we don't know what our boss writes, she just writes whatever. That's what they said.
Good. Well, thank you, Cheryl, for coming in. As you're aware, Council has made a decision on this water race to be closed, and to rescind that decision, you would need to get 4 councillors to sign a letter or notice of motion, which would be given to the Chief Executive to rescind the decision, and then Council could rehear that decision. So that's your avenue you've got going forward, if you get 4 councillors, a minimum of 4, to rescind the decision. But thanks for coming along and telling us what you've told us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Start the ball rolling, Neil. You sign up.
The ball's in Cheryl's hands. So thanks very much. So the next item on the agenda is public forum. Helen Mitchell, come forward, and I'll vacate the chair, and the deputy mayor will take chair.
Thank you, welcome Helen. So if you would like to start, and we'll have questions afterwards. Do you need anything? Oh, can you just turn your light on, please, so then people at home can hear us? Down the bottom. Lovely, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about the petition that I sent in. I was just concerned when I saw that you're advertising for swimming pool staff, but you wanted them with vaccine passes. And I was thinking, this is not happening widespread in New Zealand at the moment. So I very quickly gathered a few signatures and then just sent it round. We could, if I worked on it, get a lot more signatures. But 24th of May, One News had an article on the government dropping the police and the NZ Defence Force vaccine mandates. They said the mandate was unlawful. The judge said the order does not involve a reasonable limit on the applicant's rights that can be justified in a free and democratic society, and that is unlawful. The order was imposed to ensure continuity of public services and to promote public confidence in these services, rather than stop the spread of COVID-19. The government has abandoned their appeal. The chief lawyer, Matthew Haig, said the appeal should never have been made. It prolonged division and hurt caused by the government's unlawful vaccine mandates. Radio New Zealand News said, Justice Cook said the vaccination order breached their rights under the Bill of Rights Act. The right to refuse medical treatment, including people's rights to remain employed. The rights to religious beliefs. The vaccine is tested on human fetuses. Health advice given to the government was that further mandates were not required to restrict the spread of COVID-19. The threat exists for both vaccinated and unvaccinated staff. I looked on the health.government.nz website and found the details of who's been damaged comparing the vaccinated with the unvaccinated. Death totals for the not fully vaxxed, 239, the totals of the vaxxed, 873. Those in hospital unvaxxed, 1,500, fully vaxxed, 8,200. Those who are catching COVID, unvaxxed, 45,000. Those who are fully vaxxed, 912,000. Mortality rate is similar to a bad flu season, and it's disturbing that COVID death is anyone who had a positive COVID test within 28 days, regardless of other causes of death. Why are the numbers pushed up? Look at the effectiveness of the vaccine. Gibraltar, was fully vaxxed, even 140%, and they had to lock down for Christmas because of outbreaks. And last December, Antarctica had an outbreak in their Belgium research station. Everyone who goes there is fully vaxxed and tested before going. 16 out of 25 workers got it. Cruise ships. These are fully vaxxed, tested before going, and they've had outbreaks. In December last year, 91 ships were under investigation by CDC. The CDC say that the fully vaccinated are at risk for getting and spreading COVID variants. Vax effectiveness wanes after about 10 weeks. Now, we'll look at the safety of the vaccines. VEERS have a website where bad results are reported. There have been over 62,000 allergic responses, or people who've complained about how the vaccine treated them. 3,200 of those have been serious effects that have happened. There have been 160 deaths from the vaccine. This is all on the MedSafe website. We have a local nurse, Nikki, that we know, who took the jab so that she could continue working, but now she is unable to work. She's got severe, blood clots and big long pulmonary embolisms, and she needs operations. She will have to be on medication for the rest of her life. And you think, what if that was your daughter or my daughter? Pfizer have made $37 billion in profit. It's the biggest profit of any business in the whole of history. Pandemic profiteering. They carry no liability for harm. The warehouse has a better guarantee on their products. Will the council be responsible for damages caused by mandated vaccines? So I would finish by saying the vaccines are neither safe nor effective. Mandates are unlawful. Please stop the mandates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Helen, for that presentation. I will now go to questions from the councillors. Any questions? None. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I've got one question. You said something, Baltimore, wherever it was, they were having 100%, 140% off. How do you do that?
140%. I think because they're counting all the extra stuff. If you look on the news articles about it, they do call it 140 because of the extra boosters and things that they've had. And I think they've had people from Spain going to Gibraltar to work, and they're getting vaccinated as well, but going to live out of the country.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense. Thank you. And we've received the petition.
Yes.
Is there any other further questions from councillors? Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question. Your main concern is that mandates are illegal. Is that really the main point you're making? I'm aware of all the background information and your concerns about the safety of vaccines and all that, but is your number one priority to lift the mandates? Am I correct?
I think so, yes. That's my concern, that free choice has been taken away from people. And that came out in the court case, that the bodily autonomy of people is being invaded. There's the Nuremberg trials, and they say that no one has a right to do medical experiments and to force them on other people.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a council, we made a decision on the vaccine passes for our buildings, and that has been lifted. The staff is handed over to our CEO, so just to make that clear. And I think if there's nothing else, thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate that. We've got the petition. I'll hand it back over to Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan, and thanks Cheryl and Helen for presenting today. Well done, thank you. Councillors, we do have Waka Kotahi and Kiwi Rail here, but we might just tidy up a couple of, one matter anyway. We'll get the confirmation of the minutes done, and then we can go on to Kiwi Rail and Waka Kotahi. So, confirmation of the minutes, and I'm looking for any alterations or additions on page 3. 4, 5, 6. Councillor Cameron? Oh, no, you haven't. Oh, we've got Councillor McMillan.
I'll move.
Moved Councillor McMillan, seconded Councillor Cameron. All those in favour that the true and accurate record of that meeting, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now we can move on to Waka Kotahi and Kiwi Rail. Welcome, James. Here we've got Colin Mackay and Mark Hesenbuttle. Welcome. Please come forward. Thanks, James. Grab an extra chair. So we've asked you along today to give us an update and explanation on West Street, East Street, Walnut Ave, work that's been going on there over the last 12 months or so. Waka Kotahi's been busily through Fulton Hogan doing the work, and it's looking very good, and everything's up, the lights are up. There's just one little piece in the middle which the general public of Ashburton, who use that road regularly, are just not happy with. So we thought best to get the information straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, as into what is the hold up for the piece in the middle. So perhaps if you might to give us a wee presentation or an update, and then we can go around for questions. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the welcome. I'll keep my remarks reasonably short and hand over to, I think, the stars of the show, my colleagues at Kiwi Rail. Look, if I just start by saying, from our point of view, I can understand some community frustration at some aspects of the project. I want to acknowledge, and actually I really do appreciate the dialogue we've had when issues have risen, particularly around traffic accidents, in and around the project site. We've done our best to respond to safety concerns as they have arisen, and I think, certainly is my impression, I think the upgrade to the water-filled barriers forming the temporary roundabout at Walnut Ave have made a substantial improvement. But I also wanted to reassure Council that we will continue to monitor, the traffic management and any of the safety aspects, and continue to work on that. We want to make sure that we're operating as safer site as possible. But just to repeat, Mr. Mayor, the comments that you made, we have been working very closely with our partners at Kiwi Rail. From our point of view, the project is on track. It remains on track. Again, I can understand community frustration at what looks like delay between the road component of the project and the level crossing component of the project, but we'll get into the detail of some of that in a second. But I just did want to reassure Council that things remain, frankly, on track as planned. But I'll hand over to my colleagues at Kiwi Rail, perhaps get them to introduce themselves. They'll have some things to say, and then questions would be great.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mayor Brown, thanks for the opportunity. And as you know, when we had the opportunity for Kiwi Rail to come along and address the Council around the upgrade, we were certainly very, very welcome and very pleased to be invited and attend today. So that's fantastic. My name is Mark Hesenbuttle. I'm the General Manager of Operations for the South Island. So I look after our freight train business, so all the locomotive engineers and all of our freight terminals across the South Island, as well as our infrastructure business. So all of the orange suits that you see out on the track that are repairing and upgrading our rail corridor. We've got a team in the South Island of just under 500 that are totally committed to Kiwi Rail, which is fantastic. Sean Gore's here from our project management office. They do all the big, we do the repairs and maintenance. Sean's team project manage the larger upgrades. So I just want to kick off just as James mentioned, you know, we've been aligned on this project all the way through. I think, you know, as Mayor Brown is aware, there's been a change in funding for Kiwi Rail, which was long overdue through the Rail Network Investment Plan, something we called ARNIP. So we go cap in hand for the last 10 years since Kiwi Rail came back into government ownership for funding from the government. So every budget we would wait to see how much money we had to spend for the next year. We've now got a 10-year investment plan with under the ARNIP and the New Zealand Rail Plan, which is just fantastic for us. And so there's commitment from central government to really invest in Kiwi Rail to get the rail corridor up to speed and make good for all of the lack of investment over the last 20 or 30 years. So we're very excited about that. That funding comes from our partners at Waka Kotahi. So where they're dishing out the funding for the road network, they're now also responsible for the rail network. So it's brought a whole new dimension to Kiwi Rail and a whole lot of discipline in terms of reporting around that. And so we're very excited about that. So that's the first thing. As part of that, we work really closely with Waka Kotahi, so with James's team and my team. We meet every couple of weeks. As a senior leadership team, we're discussing the major projects and we're really joined at the hip. I suppose in particular, that just sets a bit of a background about what's happening at Kiwi Rail. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening in the Ashburton area here, which I'm quite happy to talk about at the end of this, but let's talk about the crossing. So in terms of our design, you know, you'll hear in the media and you'll see not only with us, but also with the construction industry as a general, there's a lack of design capability across New Zealand at the moment. And we've got 30 positions for signals design alone. And so you have civil construction design and then signals design. It's a very specialist skill set. Our recruitment team are actually heading over to the Philippines very shortly and going around through Asia on a major recruitment drive around that specific skill set. In terms of Walnut Ave, as James said, you know, the project is on track and we have been aligned. One of the key questions that you'll probably ask is, you know, why don't you do the roading network and do the design there and then do the design and the rail and do it all at the same time? There's a whole lot of complexities around that in terms of work sites. We need to understand the design of the actual roading network and have that fully locked down before we can start our design component. So there's all those technical capabilities around that, and to make sure that the actual rail fits with the road. So, you know, it is common practice for us not to do them at the same time. We do the roading upgrade first and then do the rail design. So that's standard and common practice for us. In terms of where we're at with the upgrade of the rail track, so Waka Kotahi are funding it, which is fantastic. And so there's a whole lot of processes that go around enabling that funding. And then the next steps in terms of the upgrade of the crossing is to actually order the track slab. So there's a massive big hunk of concrete called an Edelon slab, and that has to be ordered. Waka Kotahi have ordered that. That's booked for the 26th of August. And then they have big casts that they pour the concrete in. And that needs to cure for a 1 month period. So that takes us into late September. What we've done, and I'll just assure the council here that we've reprioritised our signals crew and our track crews and all of our equipment, procured everything that we need. So that as soon as that 1 month period after the 26th of August is available, then we can start the process of upgrading that track. So from late September onwards, we'll have our excavation team in there. We'll be ripping it out. We'll have certain block of lines on there. You need to do the formation first, and then you drop we'll need some cranes to come in and drop the slab there. We'll then need to fit the rail. And then there's all the complexities. The most complex and expensive part of our network is the signalling enablement. And that's also got to tie in with the traffic signals that James's team have put in play. So there's all that coordination. And then so you do the formation, do the slab, you do the rail head, and then you do the signals. Then we bring our team back in, we tidy everything up, we put the ballast down, and then we open it up, and then we'll have what we call a temporary speed restriction on there for a period of time where the trains will run at a lower speed while we let everything form. And then we have one of our big yellow toys come through called a tamper that will come in and prods down and tidies everything up. We come back in and inspect it. And then once we've got an inspection that gets signed off by our professional head of track, then we'll lift the line speed back to normal speed. So in terms of trying to give the council some assurance here around those timings, you know, we're committed and absolutely confident that we'll be in the November time period, November 2022, in terms of having that work completed. So I just wanted to provide that update for the council, and I suppose there's some other issues that have been raised around vegetation and that, and quite happy to talk about our site at Ashburton and what's going on there in the future, which Hamish and Mayor Brown are well aware of, and if the council wishes.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yeah, we might have some questions now. We'll just do it on the walnut ad first, then we'll move to the vegetation later. And some of those questions have already been pre-circulated to you.
Yes.
So that's great. Okay, I also have a petition here. A young resident of Ashburton did a petition, and it's asking for wants the traffic lights activated. So he's got to cup some signatures here. He did it online, so I'll give that to you as well, and you can take that away with you. But first we'll have questions from Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Never heard such a pathetic lot of dribble. Honestly, it's like designing a house.
Councillor Wilson, just keep it timely, please.
Like putting the walls of a house up and then say, we'll start and design the roof. It looks to me like NZTA are finished, and you should have been really ready to go to pour your concrete. Why was you joined at the hip, you say? Well, why wasn't the plan? You knew, surely NZTA had their plans finished. They wouldn't put the road down until they'd finished their plans. How long ago were their plans finished? It must have been months ago, because they've done all the physical work. But you haven't even started physical work, let alone finished your planning. Why were the plans not designed together?
Thank you, Councillor. So if I start, and if Mark wants to add, I think it's important to understand that yes, as Mark said, we need to do the road planning and then hand over the plans for Kiwirail to do their planning. But we also, of course, need to do the construction, and so we can't easily and safely be doing the road construction at the same time as Kiwirail are operating the construction on the level crossing. So it was important. It's important for us to get the construction that you see completed out there now done in the construction season that has just ended, allowing the time for Kiwirail to be ready as soon as their designs are done to get on with the construction within the level crossing corridor. If we had waited in order to effectively get all of the design at both ends done beforehand, we would not be opening this at the end of this year. You would be waiting a lot longer for an operative set of intersections. But
It's supplementary, right? You finished 1st of June. Why isn't Kiwirail there on the 2nd of June, ready to go? Because you said you finished the road. Why isn't Kiwirail ready to go to start their part of it? To me, why wait if your plan's not finished yet?
I think, as I explained, you know, there's a lot of moving parts in this, and you know, one of the key ones is actually booking the slot in for the slab, and you know that dictates the program. And so, you know, what I'm coming along here and assuring you is, you know, the booking of the slab was part of the project. You know, that you just don't rock up and book that in on the 2nd of June if you start on the 1st of June. So it's about part of the planning process. And then, you know, the assurance that we're giving you is, and as soon as that 1 month cure period's up, we'll relocate and reallocate and prioritise and get our team in there, and we'll be doing it as quickly as we can. You know, given all the work that, you know, the levels that I talked about. So that's in the original program, and we're committed to delivering that. So we won't let you down on November.
Thanks for that. Just before I go to Councillor Falloon, when you're putting the slab down and waiting for it to do what it needs to do, will that section of railway be closed?
Yeah, what we call, Mayor Brown, is a blocker line. So we'll be, and our blocker line, so we'll be coordinating that. And the blocker line will be for the trains as well. So we'll be talking to our customers and just getting, a decent amount of time there on the weekends. So, that's our program of work, just to make sure that the impact is as least as possible.
Okay. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the thing that pisses everybody off in Ashburton is the frustration in seeing a job finished, but waiting for another government department to actually complete their part. I can understand why NZTA did the job because they wanted to get the asphalting done within the season. But what I cannot understand is why did, knowing that NZTA understood the problems that Kiwi Rail had, why they did not delay the job and start in July or August so the whole lot could have fitted together, as Councillor Wilson said, by which stage Kiwi Rail would have got all their plans in a row.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. As I explained, it is, whilst I understand the frustration, it isn't easy or frankly practical for us to be doing the road work at the same time as Kiwi Rail upgrading. So if we would have held the road work into this coming construction season, we would effectively be on the site at the same time as Mark has explained, dropping the slab, and that makes the coordination much more impractical. So it has been broken across seasons, and I get that puts us in this frustrating period of waiting between one project and another, but it will give you the cleanest, fastest project by November.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you for your presentation, team. So what I can understand, there project management concerns mean that there has to be the separation of Waka Kotahi and Kiwi Rail efforts. In order to design the Kiwi Rail aspect, Waka Kotahi need to be finished. So that, and also safety issues for your team when you're doing your work. If you look at our community, the safety issue is a big issue for us as well, and we do not see your design modified to reflect our concerns with regards to safety. So I'm disappointed in that. And also we have tremendous inconvenience. We were told that the main slowdown reason for the conduit between getting through Ashburton was this Walnut Ave intersection. Well, now it's obviously much slower, much worse through a whole, basically it's going to be a whole year. My question to you is an acknowledgement of that and our safety concerns, because you have clearly prioritised your own staff safety concerns, which as a good employer you need to do, but we represent our community, so we need to look at our safety concerns. But my question to you is, have you modified or changed any thinking in the way this project has been managed, and what are your key learnings from the management of this project? Because I would like to see how responsive Kiwi Rail are and how responsive Waka Kotahi are to a community, to quote John, very upset, and in response to Stuart's remarks. Yeah.
Perhaps I start. No, I'll start and see if Mark has anything to add. Just to reassure you, I don't think it is a matter of prioritising staff safety over public safety. We've done our very best to be responsive as we have understood the safety issues at that site, and will continue to be. So you'll see there's VMS operating there. We'll continue to monitor the performance of that, and Fulton Hogan, the contractor, is on site to make sure that is performing properly, because it isn't acceptable for there to be significant safety issues for the public, just as it isn't acceptable from a staff point of view. So I don't want to give you the impression that it's staff prioritised over the public. That's not how a site like that should be managed. And look, in terms of lessons, I think perhaps the most important one is one of communication and understanding that actually the project was this is the way the project was always planned to roll out. It hasn't been delayed. We're still well on track, but being in the middle of it, it is like being in the eye of the storm. You sort of, it feels calm and what's going on. Well, there's still a substantial piece of work to come in terms of future lessons. That is very probably something we need to take away and understand how to make sure everyone understands what's going on, what's planned, why there seems to be a lack of activity when more work is to be done, and understand the disruption. I totally appreciate, though, the disruption that the public are experiencing now. I don't think it's as much a safety issue as one of inconvenience, which isn't to belittle that. It is just to note that it is, as you say, the intersection is operating less now than it was previously. But I can reassure you that I remain confident that once we are done, the intersection will be a significant improvement for the district.
We certainly agree with that. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to add, I think James has hit it on the head. It's about the level of communication, right? So we'd have come along and clearly articulated the whole plan to the council in terms of saying, here it is, and it's going to be November 2022, then we wouldn't be here having this conversation. If we had have explained up front, the process, that, we've talked about, and you understand the complexities of our business. We're certainly not hiding behind, the design shortage and COVID and all those sorts of things, that just needs to be, part of work and BAU in New Zealand now. So we're certainly not hiding behind that, but, that level of upfront commitment and communication, then, yeah, we wouldn't have been here. And I think, we're working very hard at QRL to improve our responsiveness. Been to many sessions with Mayor Brown and Hamish over the last sort of 12 months trying to explain what's happening at QRL. We've got a massive mountain of work coming at us, and we're very excited about that. But we've got to make sure that we deliver for the communities, and the communities understand the impact. And unfortunately, the building of rail does actually take a bit of time. So again, the more we can communicate and local government understand that, then the better we'll be. Thank you.
Can I just have one more quick remark? Yep. Thank you for that. And my next comment is, we have a footpath sort of crossing West Street, and you have a man there with a stop go sign or whatever. That footpath is quite close to the roundabout, and people are getting discombobulated with the jolly road cones. There's 1,000 road cones. So you're trying to get through the roundabout. You're not necessarily expecting kids to be 5 metres on the other side of the exit of the roundabout. I don't know, but that seems to me a risky undertaking. But I bow to your superior knowledge on that aspect.
I'm happy to take that particular issue up to just make sure that we are really clear that is. Yes, but.
Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to talk about the frustrations. I think one of the biggest things that's come out of this is all the pine cones. The cones out there, there's just been far too many of them. And people at night, you look at them all and struggling with that roundabout, and I think one big learning going forward is if you've got a roundabout in the middle, put your physical barriers around that people coming in all directions can actually see it's a roundabout, not a cone sitting everywhere and trying to decide what to do. So going forward, I hope that is one thing you do take on board, the frustrations of people trying to measure out where these cones are leading to.
Thank you, Councillor. That is absolutely a lesson learned from this project, and I remember having a conversation with the Mayor some weeks ago now. But yes, understanding that the move to those water-filled barriers, which are visually different, they're still orange, but they're different from cones, gives you a better understanding of what is going on in terms of the temporary traffic management there. It is much easier to understand different road conditions at night, as you say, what is intended in terms of the temporary setup there. So I think we've understood that is something that we need to do much more clearly.
Thank you. And when you move to Tynwald, use them out there as well. Right.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. And some of what I've written it down, so I'm going to say it. It's been said, but I think the project's great. We waited years to get it, and I agree with the roundabout. A pity it wasn't, the orange cones weren't put back in sooner. But my main thing is about advising the people. And when you knew, and you've obviously known for some time, there's going to be that time gap between the two projects. in the media releases, some of that story should have started to get fed into it so that people didn't have the expectation and now asking, hey, why did that not happen? Some advanced building in all the time and the promotional stuff would have perhaps helped alleviate that. And I'm a Tynwald person, as you know, and I sincerely hope, and I did write in, that we do not see a repeat of this in the Lagmore Road, Agnes Street, when it gets constructed.
So if I could, councillor, just on Tynwald, just to give you the update. So that business case is now complete, and we are in what we call the detailed design phase. It's inescapable in the sense that the corridor is very similar in the sense that you have the rail corridor right next to the road corridor and an intersection like that. So at a macro level, there will be disruption, and temporary traffic management works when we get there. Again, I simply can reassure the council that we are working hand in glove with KiwiRail to make sure that lessons learned from this project are transferred over to the other project, that timings are as tight as they can be, and that we communicate as well as we can with the public when that project goes into construction.
Thank you. And just one more question, if I may, and it hasn't. I don't think I've read it anywhere yet. Back to the rail crossing up here. So when you say it's going to be closed for a month, the whole crossing will be closed. Traffic will be diverted away from that rail crossing, the Walnut Avenue one, or are you looking at?
Just use your microphone there, mate.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor Brown. Thanks for the opportunity to clear it up. No, we won't close it for a month. The month is taken, we're actually precasting the panels in Rolleston, so then we'll bring them down and towards the end of September when they're ready, and then we'll insert them over 3 block of lines, which will be 3 weekends. That we'll close everything down for 3 weekends and work in that period. And that's when we'll do all the groundwork and install the panels.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Be a bit of a drama if they couldn't cross it. Thanks.
Just before I go to Councillor Falloon, I have a couple of questions from people who have asked me, and I think I know the answer. The question was, who's paying for all the traffic management at the moment? And I dare say it is Wakakatahi because it's their project. Yeah, thought there was another question was, why don't you close the railway line off now and activate the lights that are there, and people, if they wanted to cross either side, would use the other ones until the whole project was completed? Is that a possibility?
I think it's something that we've thought about, because obviously people have asked, but I think the answer is you'd actually need to reprogram those lights to work without the level crossing, and there is a substantial cost, as Mark indicated, with regards to signalling. Signalling is an extremely expensive and complex part of these sorts of projects, and it would be impractical to reprogram those lights to run effectively the way you would want them for the next few months, and then reprogram them again to run the way they will need to run once the project is completed. I understand that the current situation is a temporary inconvenience, but it is the most effective way of operating it.
Okay, thanks. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question I have is, it looks like this West Street one all up is probably going to take about 14 months to complete. Can you give us any timescale on how long it's going to take to complete the Tynwald corridor?
I'm afraid I can't at the moment, councillor, because we're still in detailed design for that corridor, but I'm happy to, when we have timeframes, to give them to you.
So we'll firm that up as time goes on. I'm just thinking, listening to you, might be better to do the rail crossing first and do the road second. Councillor Brum on the railway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have trouble with the plans yet, thinking back. The reason is, if you've got a detailed plan for the roading, and it goes out for tender, you know exactly where all the bits and pieces are going. So the train part is just the part in the middle. You know exactly what the spaces are. So why can't you start designing as soon as you've got the roading plan, detailed plan done, and the tender is gone? There's nothing going to change then. So you've got the time, just only for that corridor you have to fit in. Is that correct? You know, why waiting that long?
No, it's where the complexity is around the signalling, the traffic lights and the pedestrian lights and them interfacing with our signals. They have to then come in, because we are putting in pedestrian gates which are interfaced with our signals as well, and they open and close automatically, and obviously the booms and they all have to interface with the traffic lights. So we have to wait for the final traffic light design, and then we can start doing our detailed design on what's required in the crossing. Yeah.
So, if you do the roading part, so for example, so you don't know where you put the traffic lights in yet. That should be in the same house. That should be part of that, isn't it? So you know where all the cables going or not.
I think the point is simply that it is a complex planning process once we do know. So we do know, they're in there now. We know what the intersection layout will be, but it takes quite a degree of time and expertise from the point in time when you know that to complete to complete the planning work at the Kiwi Rail end. It's not a quick process. So there is inevitably a time lag from when you have certainty about the road traffic outcome and you have completed the design work in the rail corridor. It just takes time.
Okay.
Councillor Cameron, still on the railway line?
No.
What do you want to go to?
I want to go to picking of weeds and keeping the
Okay,
railway
Stuart,
line
what do you?
tidy.
You might still railway.
Oh, we'll do the railway, then come back to Caroline.
Shall I hang up
Yes,
and then?
yes, hang
What's yours, John?
Railway line.
Okay, I'll hang.
Yeah, I thought you've answered most of the questions regarding the road rail. My question is about Kiwi Rail. Mark, you're gloating about getting government money and Wakatahari money. I think that's disgraceful. As a motorist who pays fuel tax, road user charges, if I was a transport operator, I would be irate that you've got to be subsidised. You've got a blimmin' railway line. For goodness sake, can't you run a business to make it pay? Why have you got to siphon off road charges that I pay to upgrade my roads so that you can have it go and buy railway stuff that you can't even run efficiently?
Perhaps if I start and again hand to Mark, Councillor Wilson, I would note that as with all land transport funding decisions, we are bound by government decision and government policy, but that as a road user, if we can succeed in shifting freight in particular off the road and onto the rail corridor, other road users who remain road users benefit by the fact that that freight is not on the corridor. So as a road user, you do actually receive benefit from the investment in the rail corridor. But
you make a really good point. So the funding that we've had over the last 2-3 years is, as I said, picking up that last generation of underinvestment in the rail network, and the government's made a really clear decision in terms of making sure that rail is capable to actually deliver a proper freight operation. So the level of investment puts us on a level footing with roading, which seems fair. And so in our organisation we have two things. We have below the rail, which is the funding that I've talked about, and then we have the above the rail, and so which is the wagons, the locomotives and everything else above the rail. Now, there is no more government funding from the last budget for Kiwi Rail for its above the rail business. We need to stand alone and stand on our own 2 feet. So, the government's clearly indicated that. So if we want to go and buy some more locomotives in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, buy some more hoists for our container terminals, buy some new wagons, we need to fund that out of our freight business and be sustainable. And so that is your point, and we're very committed to doing that. Our freight business is going really well in the current environment, and then when you align that with our passenger and tourism network and our ship business, and we can see all the good things that are coming for that, hopefully over the next year and 2 to 3 years, then we're confident that we'll be sustainable as a business and be able to pay our way. Thanks.
Councillor Floon, last one on the railway, then we'll move on to other Thank you. Yeah, just following on from the timing question before, I can understand why you can't give me a time that's going to take, but can you assure us that you'll get the whole job done in one construction season?
Honestly, councillor, I'm at this stage not across the detailed design of that project, so I'm not able to give you that kind of assurance.
I think in terms of the question that was before, in terms of lessons learned, in terms of communication, I think there'll be commitment from James and myself to come back and outline that project plan, and whether we do that through Hamish, who can relay that onto the councillors. Let's make sure that we get that up front so everybody knows the clear picture. So I think that would be a good thing. Cheers.
Good, that sounds a good idea. Caroline, other matters with it?
Thank you. We take great pride in our town, and we spend a lot of money as a community on our open spaces and making sure that our lawns are mowed and our weeds sprayed and all the rest of it, and our town is very pretty. When I get a lot of complaints, as do the rest of the people around the table, with regards to the weeds down on Kiwi Rail owned land. Now I understand you're in the business of railways and not in the business of landscaping or gardens. We have tried to we've sent letters, as I understand, to Kiwi Rail saying tidy up your act because it's making our town look scruffy. As I understand, we haven't had a lot of response to that, and we can't necessarily go onto your land because it's not our land. So tell me please how we can deal with the neglect, as I see it, with regards to the roadsides and verges of land that's owned by Kiwi Rail.
Yeah, look, we spoke to our vegetation team over the last couple of days, and we're happy to communicate the process around accessing Kiwi Rail's ability to control the foliage and vegetation on the rail corridor. It's a big issue for us, and it's an expensive issue, but we're committed to it. And we'll post this meeting, we'll communicate back to the council the process in terms of contacting Kiwi Rail. I think one of the things we do here is that Kiwi Rail's a big entity and can be difficult to get to the right person, but I'll give you a commitment that I'll work closely with Hamish and Mayor Brown in terms of enabling that ability to tidy up, particularly the township area. As you know, most of our railways do go through a lot of townships. It's very similar here to Hastings when we're trucking right the way through. So yeah, we come along with a commitment that we can do that. Just in terms of the rail corridor, we are one of the largest landowners in New Zealand, if not the largest. We own a significant amount of land, 4,000 kilometres worth of track, but it's our responsibility to be a good neighbour. We do have regional management plans in place with all of the regional councils around vegetation control, pest eradication, etc. So we do have those agreements with all 14 regional councils, but I'll just give you a commitment that we'll come back to you and work that through and put you in the right contact with the right people.
Well, we're not really prepared to go to the right people because we've gone to a lot of people, so we're going to you. Because so we don't mean to bash you because you turned up, so we appreciate that. But we've been nagging on about this for a long time, and I'm sure that we would employ somebody if you would pay us to do it. Then we would sort that out. But we need the resources to do that as well. You've sort of let us down quite badly in that area, and it's not a small thing.
No, I appreciate that. Absolutely. I'm actually back down here in Ashburton next week, so that's good. But in terms of access to the rail corridor, so it actually is illegal to access the rail corridor, so we need to make sure we do that. But we do have a permit process where we allow our contractors, and we largely use Treescape, and then they contract out to other organisations. So look,
well, they need to do it a wee bit faster. May I ask one supplementary question, please? We have a heritage bridge going over the railways in Ashburton, and that needs a repair, painting, spraying, and all the rest of it. What is your commitment to that sort of structure?
Yep, so we've got the Rail Heritage Trust that sits in our building at Bunny Street. I've just been working with them around some upgrade of some historical sites on the coast in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So we have the old wooden shelters which our track staff used to hide from the rain and the weather and all that sort of stuff. So at Moana, Kukuku and Inchbonny, and we're just working with them around a process. So we're doing some condition assessments on those we can do some structural repairs to them. The Rail Heritage Trust said that they would be happy to
Look
get
at
the
our
volunteers and paint them. The Moana Bridge is actually being upgraded by the Heritage Trust. So again, I'm happy to take point on that and come back and have a look at that building, the bridge, sorry.
That's a pedestrian bridge. So so what you're telling me, just so I understand correctly, is you're going to go away, speak to somebody and come back to us and let us know the next steps and how we'll approach because we love this bridge and we want it looked after. So how you will approach the management of maintaining this bridge, which is a national heritage bridge.
So we talked to our Heritage Trust organisation, so Barry O'Donnell.
Yeah.
And then we understand, what's the ownership of that, because the Heritage Trust and a lot of the heritage buildings around the rail network aren't owned by Kia Rail. So Moana Station is
it's
not.
on your land.
And then we would work out what happens there.
Okay.
And if you take what I've been talking about on the coast, we've been saying to the Heritage Trust, we're quite happy to fund that as part of, our history in the railway network. Let's do the condition assessment first.
Yeah.
Understand what work needs to be done, and then if there's a task of jobs to be done, who's going to do them, who's going to fund them. So that would be the process that we would undertake.
That would be wonderful. So can we look at this term of council? Okay.
I'm happy to.
Because we're all gone burger in October.
Oh.
For about. If you don't.
Potentially, councillor, potentially. Thanks for that. And just to help you out, Mark, you say the rail business is a big entity in New Zealand, and so it is, and communicating down to the smaller areas is sometimes a little bit more difficult. To give you assistance, if you contacted the DIA, they are looking at setting up 4 entities in New Zealand at the moment, and they assure us the local people will have input in to the bigger entity. So they have the answer, so just give them the question, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Who have we got? Councillor Mackay.
Oh, Mr Mayor, you're just about as bad as I am. I've got a question for James. Maybe the problem of coordination and overseeing and oversight is maybe further up the food chain. So would this kind of what seems to us unorganised, would that have happened because of the Finance Minister's attitude in 1988 to 1990?
I'm not sure I want to be drawn on family history there, Councillor.
Oh, he would have been. Yeah. Stuart.
Yeah, I've got a couple of brief questions to James. Archibald Street, you did a good job through there and put hot mix and everything. And then your contractor went through and put some gravel on and had a couple of blocked nozzles. And if that was Ashburton District Council, I would have made them do it again. But you seem to ignore it. And the other brief question is, do you ever put lights at traffic intersections? The Moore Street, West Street intersection, nothing more frustrating than you get a green light to turn right out of Moore Street and some idiot continually runs the red light and cuts right across you. They seem to know there's a 2-second interval between they go red until we get green. And the question is, do you ever put traffic light cameras at these intersections?
So let me deal with your second question first, and then I'll come back to Archibald Street. So on the issue of cameras, yes, we do. In general, I think it's worth understanding that we are in the process of taking over what I think the general public refer to as speed cameras, but we would call safety cameras across New Zealand, taking them from the New Zealand Police and bringing them into Waka Kotahi. And the reason I say that is because that is part of a general program over the next 10 years to drastically increase the number of cameras on our network nationwide. Speed cameras, light cameras, point-to-point cameras, the lot. So you will see more cameras on the network, and we will not hide from you where the cameras are. The point is you need to know where the cameras are, because knowing them is just as important in terms of behaviour change as actually catching people out. Okay. With respect to that particular intersection, I'm happy to go away and ask the question. Right now, of course, we're starting with very few cameras, and as I say, we will be building that up over time. And at the moment, we're working with the police to identify district by district where from their point of view, the priority areas are. But I acknowledge the individual frustration. Let me tell you that red light running like that drives me personally bonkers. It's a desperate frustration. On Archibald Street, the contractor doing that work will be expected to go back and make sure that the loose gravel is cleared up and that any remedial work is done, as would be the case for any council project too. But if I just step back a little, I just wanted to reassure you that surface is in our long-term maintenance program for complete replacement. But with the work plan for Tynwald, we didn't want to go in, replace that surface, and then cut it all up again when it effectively ruined the job when we did Tynwald. So what we have done is we have resealed but not resurfaced. So we've done a lesser job that will last for a shorter period of time. It still needs to be up to standard, but it is effectively designed to leapfrog us over by the time that the Tynwald project is done, and then we will resurface the full area. So it just by way of explaining why it perhaps isn't what you might want to expect, and to reassure you that remains in our project for complete resurfacing.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan, then we might move on to other Kiwi Rail things.
Thank you. Just a very quick question, James. You probably know what I'm going to ask. Last time you were here, gave you a petition on reducing the speed on State Highway 77 out of Methven. Any updates on that, please?
So since I was last here, Councillor, thank you for the opportunity to update you. So since I was last here, the new rule that I referred to at the time has now come into effect. So the regulatory regime that governs how we change speeds, both how ourselves as a road controlling authority, but also yourselves as a road controlling authority go about speed changes has changed. And I indicated that it was an important component in addressing the community's concerns. That now pushes us into a cycle of adopting, and forgive me for the regulatory terms, but adopting an interim speed management plan on the state highway network to last us until 2024, at which point we run into a 3-yearly cycle, so a speed management plan for the whole network every 3 years in time with the regional land transport plan that is published by the Regional Transport Committee. So those are regional plans. The key question that you will want to know is, can we fit that section of State Highway 77 into the interim plan, or will it have to wait to the full 24 plan? And I'm afraid, Councillor, I don't have an answer for you on that today. I am continuing to pursue that. I just don't have clarity on what that interim plan looks like yet, because we've received the rule at the same time you have. We're all actually just trying to understand what it does and does not say, and what we can and cannot program. So I haven't forgotten the community's concerns and the need there. I would love if I were able to just address the particular issue at the entrance to Methven. Again, it can't work like that. So we are bound to play by the rule, but we will do our very best to keep the community's concerns in mind.
Thank you. So at this stage, nothing's going to.
Still a bit of hurry away.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask there.
Thanks. Mark, we might flip to you now for other Kiwi Rail developments in the district.
Yeah, just a couple of things. The room looks a bit different than last time I was here. Post the floods, there was and we had one of our engineers based here for a couple of days, which I thought was really good. We've fixed all of the work, so we had some temporary works that we had on culverts and bridges, but we've fixed all the work, and it was we had about $8 million worth of damage to the rail corridor as a result of the flood. Our insurance doesn't go to that extent, which is a bit disappointing. But we've done all that work, which is great, and there's some massive bridge work down on Bridge 71 and 72, which we've fixed the pier down there, which looks amazing, and hopefully it'll stand up to the next lot of rain. We've been working really closely. We've had some media exposure around some new locomotives that we're buying for the South Island. I was on a 4-hour Zoom call last night with our suppliers in Valencia in Spain. Stadler are building the locomotives and they're taking us through the designs. We've got a team going out to Spain in early August to look at the cab specification and some other design work. And we're on track for a couple of the prototype locomotives at the back end of next year. So pretty confident sort of that early 2024, that's our contractual agreement, that we'll be having the new locomotives in play, which is a game changer for us. Very, very exciting for the South Island. As Mayor Brown and Hamish will know, the Fed and Freight Hub has been funded. We've been working through the signals design to make sure that that's all done, and we're 85% the way through that, because that is, as we've talked about a couple of times, don't want to labour the point, the most complex and expensive part of that upgrade. We're coming down here next week with Fulton Hogan to catch up with Mark from the Waring Group next week, just to keep the project going along. That will change our train plan here, but that's a very exciting opportunity, and that changes the dimension of the way that rail operates in the township here as well, because you'll just have the mainline loop and the main line and the loop there, and we'll have a new infrastructure building there for our electrical team and our track maintenance team. So, that those frustrations around trains being parked across your crossings, hopefully it'll be a thing of the past. But the Fed and Freight Hub is something that local government, central government, and private funding and also KiwiRail funding is a real game changer, and very excited about that. So again, I think, as we work through that, we'll be keeping in close contact with the council to make sure that they're aware of those timelines and when construction will come and when the freight hub will be up and running. And so, KiwiRail aren't leading that project. It's a Waring Group. They're the main funders and the driving force behind it. But it's a very exciting opportunity. So there's a lot of stuff going on, which is really good.
Thanks, Mark. Have you got a timeline there of when you turn the first sod to the first train going in?
Yeah. Look. Let's come back and not do any promises, but we're in the consenting stage, and then we're working really closely. And look, as soon as we've got that time frame and the actual opening, then we'll confirm that under that project plan. Part of next week is around sort of firming up some of that stuff, but
it's months more than years, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, just one question: the damage that was done to the bridges, whatever. Looking at the culvert, and the 1 year ago we were in Hines, and there was a culvert there which was just small, going under the railway line, and the water backed up and flooded houses. And there was damage to that. I presume because the water tried to get through, it couldn't. Has that culvert, is it still the same size, or has it been worked on?
It is, but it's on our work plan to do, so I can come back to you with that.
To make it bigger, so...
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
There's a consenting process around that, and so we do get that, and so that build-up of the culvert and then cause the overflow and then all the damage. And it's pretty similar to what happened down at Rangitata a couple of years ago, which impacted on things. So that's on our radar.
It's good. That's glad you're aware of that. So, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a simple question, and I was asked it, but I couldn't answer. I'm not working for the railways. I noticed the last couple of weeks there's quite a bit of shingle being put up on both sides, on both sides of the track, almost like mounds. Is there a reason for it?
Yep, it's a very good question. It's called Ballast Steepling, and what that does is keeps the track in formation and stops us from having track buckles, and it's generally on the curves, so it allows us to keep the speed up on the track. So yeah, it's designed to keep the track formation in play, and we call it Ballast Steepling, and it's all about the track geometry.
So it basically just stays there. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flood.
Yeah, you must be very excited about the new locomotives. How long have the current crop of locomotives been around? They didn't quite replace the steam engine, did they?
So it's interesting, I talked about our heritage brothers earlier on. So they classify a heritage rail vehicle as anything that's 40 years old. Our whole entire fleet in the South Island is a heritage vehicle.
Tells you how old it is. Thanks. James, have you got anything further to add? No spare money in your budget for us or something like that?
Nothing that I can report today.
Okay, that was definitely not a no. So, but no further questions, councillors, I don't think. So thank you very much for you all coming down, Sean, Mark and James. And yeah, thanks for enlightening us on the process. It's been really good, and it'll be reported obviously in the local paper, so everyone will know where you're up to now, and leave a lot of those questions people had. So great that everyone's now up to date, and thanks for your thick skin as well.
So we brought our internal comms team down as well to hook up with the local press.
Let's hope the two align.
Yep.
Thanks very much. Well done. Councillors, we'll move over to the next item, which is item number 5 in the reports, and it's the vesting of the Methven Skate Park. And Councillor McMillan has sitting back from the table, not taking part in this recommendation. So with Ian, thank you. Your report is attached. Anything further to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, look, I'd just like to extol the thanks to the Kids Methven Committee for the wonderful asset they have built, and the use that we see at the Ashburton skate park is mirrored at the one in Methven, and they're assets that the youth of the district really enjoy and congregate at. So I'm happy to take questions on any of it.
Yeah, it is an asset, and it's something that the community built for the children, and now's the time to hand over, if councillors agree. Councillor Lovett.
Just had a question. The actual plans for the skate park, the build of it, do we inherit those as well? Because, I mean, it is a really good skate park, and a lot of people kind of are asking, we need one here in Ashburton, you know, they could be used again down here if it was kept.
Look, through the chair, I see Steve shaking his head. I don't believe we do have the plans per se. Sometimes these things are built by and with the advice from suitably qualified people that are up there in the skate fraternity. So there may well be some of those avenues that we can explore should we have a need to in the future, certainly.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was always going to be part of council, wasn't it? Or was it all, is it just coming in this year?
Through the chair, I would expect that most assets that are deemed recreational assets at some point in their lifespan, they do migrate to the TA.
Yep.
It's one of those situations where the community get behind a project, drive it, fund it, and then ultimately that group does move on to different things, so then it does revert back to the council to take it forward into the future.
Thank you.
Question, Councillor Cameron.
Just a quick question, thank you. I note that the additional cost of, if we accept the skate park, which seems a reasonable thing to do, is $7,000 for graffiti and rubbish and lawn weeds and things. Do we have to fund depreciation if it's a $400,000 asset?
Through Mr Mayor, yes, once it becomes a vested asset, it's an asset like any other and will be depreciated.
So what would, can I ask additional question? Yep. What would that be? How much is that going to be a year? Because that isn't in the report.
Oh, I'd have to, I'm not sure what that sort of, the time frame on that sort of asset, but we can make a note of that and let you know.
Would that depreciation money be used for the upkeep of it, of the, say the $7,000? Is that where it would go to?
No, the depreciation is for capital. So maintenance, like graffiti, is a cost through your operating cost.
Yep. Yep. So when we fund the depreciation, which we've just gone through the annual budget, so we know what depreciation costs, that will be in addition to the $7,000 maintenance
Correct.
fund in a different pile of money. So
Correct.
we probably need to have a ballpark of what that's going to be. I would think.
Indeed, we will find out for you.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you for that. I think it was John first, but yeah, I've no questions anymore. I'm quite happy to move.
Oh, no, still on questions, yep. But the lights signal to me who's up first. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. At what value does this vest as part of council's assets? Do we take it over at the book value of whatever it is in the Methven Skates Park's books, or do we take it over at valuation, or what?
Steve?
Just through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify that, we revalue our assets on either an annual 3-yearly basis as part of our planning process, and we tend to value at the current rate. So you'll notice that in the report, the cost to build it, and then by that community group, and if we were to go out and buy one today, I've included the cost in there. Just to clarify that question on the depreciation, skate parks are immensely complicated to fund or identify the depreciation. It's got an asset life of 100 years because it's concrete. It's not going to break down. But it's got an activity life of probably 15 to 20 years. So it's something that we're working with our finance team to look at. We've got to recognise the depreciation, but actually of that, how much do we fund? So it's quite a fine balance between the activity life, and by that time the kids no longer want to use it, versus asset life. So it's something that Erin and Ian and I are working through what that may look like. So it's a bit of a fine balance. Thank you for that. My second question is, what rate does this come out of? The General Amenities Fund or the Rural Amenities Fund, or general rates, or what?
Through the chair, it'll be the Methven Urban rate.
Oh, thank you.
I would expect for the recreation assets of the town.
Yep, thank you. Now, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If there are no more questions, I'm happy to move the recommendation on page 7.
And Councillor Lovett seconded. And you must speak to the motion, Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I did a small part there a couple of years ago for Liz, and it was quite amazing. The people who were there, the community was there. I was blown away the first time I came how much was done there by the community. So it's a good asset, and I'm quite happy to take it over for the cost.
Thank you. Speakers for or against the motion, Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, councillors, I remember when Kids Methven got started and council started to work with them, and we looked at a number of sites around Methven. So to cut a long story short, we got the right site in the end. Kids Methven need to be absolutely congratulated for the capital vested asset, whatever that they have built. All I know is that it makes the community more brilliant than it was before, and they deserve big pats on the back for what they have done, and I congratulate them, and I will definitely be voting for this.
Yes, I'll be voting for the motion as well, and actually opened the facility 2 years ago, I think it was now, and it's a great facility, well used, probably many a bone broken and a lot of skin ripped off as people have been skating on it. The mothers would fear their children going down and coming back and see what damage they've done to themselves, but they will have had a lot of fun while they're there, and that is the important thing, so I'll be voting for. Councillors, any further speakers for or against? If not, any right of reply required? Councillor Brown? No, I'll put the motion on in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ian. Next item is on page 14, and it's the draft submission to Ministry of Environment, Adapt and Thrive, Building a Climate-Resistant Aotearoa, New Zealand. Tony, Richard, welcome. Anything further to add?
Thank you, through the chair. Nothing further to add. We'll take it all as read. I just wanted to reinforce that the Canterbury Mayoral Forum has produced a very good submission that we are looking to endorse as a council, and so our submission is just to add a local flavour.
Okay, councillors' questions? Councillor Mackay.
If I can make a statement, Mr Mayor.
Should we hold the statement until we get into the debate? Right?
Statement is very important for the question I'm going to ask.
Okay, right.
I believe climate is changing. My question is, in the early 2000s, was the impact of climate change, or the changing climate, a factor in building the Ashburton stock banks? And if it was, can you prove it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, perhaps I can answer that. I've heard Councillor Mackay say it wasn't. in the past, so I assume that it wasn't a factor in climate change. The climate change wasn't a factor in them being built. They were presumably trying to protect from the possibility of flood.
That is right. We didn't want a previous flooding experience. We didn't want the previous flooding experience of Ashburton to happen. So, why are we continuing to use the 2001 flooding event as an example of protecting the town when it was not a reason in 2000 and 2001?
You might have your dates mixed there. You're talking about the 2021 flood.
I said, why is the 2021 flooding event being used as a reason for why the banks were built in 2000 and 2001?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the issue of flooding and climate change are inexorably linked, regardless of the stated reason at the time some infrastructure to protect from those risks was built. So it's not unreasonable in the context of considering climate change and the impact, and many experts telling us that there will be more drought, there will be more flooding, that infrastructure that is in place to assist the community to get through those events is related to climate change, whether or not it was a stated reason at the time the infrastructure was built.
Have I ever denied climate change, sir?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you. So why is the true reason for building the banks not quoted in any submissions or anything we have to do today?
You think the true reason for building the banks is to allow residential housing to be on Racecourse Road?
To allow Ashburton to expand and to protect Ashburton from a similar flood many, many years before that.
Yeah, and the good grace of good governance of the previous councillors at Environment Canterbury ensured that stop bank was put in and for protection of this town in the 2021 floods.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with all that, Mr. Mayor, but it's when it comes down to here, to me it reads as if that bank was only put in for climate change. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, what would you like it changed to?
I believe that there could be something around it about how this district has looked to protect its residents from past events, and past events actually look as if they could happen, according to some scientists, more frequently.
Because they have happened before?
Because they have happened before.
Yes,
yep.
Okay.
It's not based on rhetoric, models or anything, it's just based on that the town has been flooded before.
Yep, so we could put that into the submission in the appropriate place, add those words in, yep, or wherever it fits. Sound all right? Councillor Cameron?
Thanks. I've got a few points to make, or just questions to ask, if I may. Yeah. Point 16, let me just go, I've just gone into the Ministry of Business with them. Point 16, I'll just find it. What are we actually asking? Are we asking the government to slow down on these reforms because we're too busy doing other things? Is that what we're asking? Through the chair?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we are. Yeah. We're continuing to ask for it to slow down so we can take a really considered...
That is fine, if that's what we're asking. I think we need to be clear as to how slow we want them to go. Like the Resource Management Act in the next 2 years and the Emergency Management Act in the next 3 years, or whatever. I think it's ambiguous. I've got to point 18. I think point 15 is a good point. Point 18, given our community and economy reliance on the agricultural sector, we urge an inclusive and just transition for the rural sector. Well, of course we do. We believe that the sector will rise to the challenge of climate change, adaptation, mitigation, blah, blah, blah. This approach will be more effective than one size fits all. I think that's very important. Our GDP growth in our districts has gone up about 4.5%, so I think that's very important. But that seems to be a little bit at odds with point 19, we were asking for population-based funding. We suggest funding may be allocated on a population basis. Well, given our population is sparse compared to our contribution to the GDP and because we have a massive rural and agricultural section, I don't think that that's reasonable. I think we should get more than our population base because we contribute significantly more than our population per capita to the GDP.
Do we get more or do we pay more?
Well, we're asking for a population base is what we're asking for, and I don't think that we're going to come out on the winning side of that if we get population-based funding.
Yes, we could change that to a fair base for our district or some such wording that would leave it open for debate in the future.
I think rural communities will always miss out if we do population-based because we don't have a lot of people.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's a fair point. Yep.
Point 22. Sorry about that. Point 19, we've done that. Point 22 is not specific. What was that now? We wish to strongly promote the critical role of local authorities. Yes, well, we do. We have the right conversations with the right people at the right time. I suppose that's okay. Point 23, local government to lead local planning. It responds best to clear deadlines and clear expectations. So we're asking for clear expectations from the government, but we're asking them to slow down on some of their reforms. So we probably need to put some time frames around that. And point 24 is not there. So that's all my questions.
Thank you. Point noted.
Noted, we'll get rid of number 24 and tidy things up.
Yep. Councillor Lovett.
I was just having issues with trying to understand point number 7. When I actually went online to have a look at climate change, and they're referring to the flooding in Canterbury that's back in 2021 was 10 to 15% more intense as a result of human influence on the climate system. And I was just trying to work out what have we done to make it worse, or is this all to do with modelling on computers, or what is going on, or the lack of digging out the gravel in the rivers, or what?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have discussed this previously. There was research done specifically to examine that matter in the aftermath of the 2021 floods, and that research from the scientists came to the conclusion that human influence on the system had made that flooding event 10 to 15% more intense or worse than it otherwise would have been. So that research is available. We can circulate it for you. It was explained in the research why they had come to that conclusion. So independent scientists came to that conclusion, and it was published and received some publicity at the time.
Okay, because I know I read a bit of it and it was to do with modelling and stuff, but yeah, where's the actuals I was struggling with?
Okay. Councillor Flood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 3 questions. Basically, the first one relates to clause 15, learning from the lessons of 3 water reform process, etc., etc. What point are we trying to achieve by including the debacle of the 3 waters in here?
Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess we were trying to capture the concern that local government has had along the way with the 3 waters reform, where there was consultation but not necessarily genuine consultation, and it felt like it was almost a I might be putting words into people's mouths. It felt for local government like there was a predetermined solution on the table. So we're trying to make the point of, if you want to work alongside local government, work alongside us genuinely.
Yeah. I just make the point, is there any point in even having that clause in there?
Entirely up to you as a council.
Yeah, councillors want it in or out? Yeah. In. Right. Okay. Stays in, yep.
Okay. The next one is point 19, and following on from what Councillor Cameron says, I don't like the population-based funding either, but I think it should be replaced with a population/risk basis for funding, because every area has different risks, and therefore one risk is not fit all things. So to me, a population risk basis. And my last point is, if this is a draft, why have both the Mayor and the Chief Executive signed it
as though the job's already been done and sent away.
Anticipation has not been sent away, but if you agree with it, the alterations will be made, but it's already signed, ready to go.
But it is a good point, because I think that possibly implies that it has been finalised when it hasn't, so we will look to not add signatures to a draft until council has approved it in the future.
Thank you.
I just have, before we go to Councillor Cameron, 2 items in there. 20, bullet point 20, we believe the failure of a successive central government to respond to the climate crisis in a timely way. We in this council don't use the term crisis. I would like it changed to government to respond to climate change in a timely way. Remove crisis.
Yep, done.
Yeah, and the next one, number 21, talks about Three Waters, suggesting that we won't have ownership of them in some time in the future, which may be true and may not be. So I would remove the whole of 21, if councillors agree. Agreement?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, agree. Remove 21.
Absolutely.
Yep. And Councillor Cameron now.
Thank you. Back again to my old chestnuts. I think, in response to Councillor Falloon, which the councillor already responded to, but I think we need to shoot an arrow across the bow of the government to say how they've handled the Three Waters reform has been inappropriate and hasn't taken us along on the journey, and we don't want this to happen with the climate change and those other pieces of legislation that they're reviewing. And that was the point of that particular aspect. The point of the funding, population risk, I think we remove population entirely. Our population is 35,000 out of 5.4 or 5.5 million. So we given how this community makes it generates its money, its its GDP, a lot of it is agricultural based, so the cost that we may or may not be exposed to could be a lot higher than other places where they might contribute, get their earnings from somewhere else. So I think it should be, as you alluded to, Hamish, a fair mechanism, like even square meterage or something would be better than population, because we're only going to get a pittance if we do it on population.
Can that, Tony, can that paragraph be reworded and perhaps sent to myself and the Chief Executive to see if we capture what has been said, because there's 2 slightly different angles on this one. Yep. Yeah, when does this have to be submitted by?
I've lost the date. I think it's next week.
Okay.
Yes.
If councillors want to re-see it, or put the trust in us that we see that we've captured the wording.
Trust
Oh, no. Okay.
I'd like to see it.
Righto, we'll let Councillor Cameron see it. We can all see it if you wish. Yep. Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would not put in risk. There's a lot of areas in New Zealand that have got a bigger risk. They've got a lot of, we haven't got any sea intrusion virtually into our district. It's more surface flooding. I mean, there's towns in North Island where the whole town is at risk. If it gets to risk, we'll miss out in a big way. So I would not put risk in.
Unless perhaps we have 2 iterations of 19 and we send them around and see which one gains the most favour. Yeah. One with risk and one with what Caroline's talking about, and see which one we feel the best with. Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going back to infrastructure. We probably do need something in there on 21, because the biggest, you talk about risk to us, if we don't own our waters anymore, the lack of service or attention we'll get with these pipe work and water races and stuff, it is going to become a problem to us if it's taken off us. Something needs to be worded in there. Under our ownership, we look after it and can deal with a flooding event, but if it's taken off us, it's out of our control, and that becomes the risk in the climate change.
Yes, I understand. I think the point we were trying to make was that the process of the reform and the uncertainty of where we're at with it and how it's going to develop over the next year or 3 and an uncertain outcome is going to add complexity to the manner in which the entities may respond to adaptation issues. So I think we can expect that whatever ends up as part of the reform process, the new water supply entities will be highly aware, conscious of their responsibilities under the National Adaptation Plan. What the point we're trying to make is that the process is still unfolding. The outcomes are uncertain. That is what's adding complexity in this infrastructure context. It's not that I think any of us would think that the new entities won't consider and take into account climate change adaptation, because they absolutely will and will have to, because they've got the pipes the same as us. So it's more this uncertainty adding complexity is the point we're trying to make, not trying to say they won't do it at all or we're better at it. It's really, it's a churning milieu of issues right now because of the uncertainty. But to the Mayor's point, we seem to find some favour around the council table that actually doesn't need to be said at all, because in the end the new entities will have to work on their adaptation strategies just as we would if we continue to own them, so it doesn't need to be said. That's
as long as we do that. Yeah. If no further questions, someone like to move? Councillor Cameron. Councillor Falloon. Open for debate. Councillor Falloon.
I just wonder whether that recommendation is correct, because the draft has to be changed before it comes the final one.
And we could put in there with changes.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as an amendment.
Right. Okay, so the mover and the second is happy that we put with discuss changes. Yep. Happy with that? Councillor Mackay, speak to the motion.
Mr Mayor, with the changes made, I think it's a very good submission. For too long, the government and government agency have sat apart from helping to fund, for example, flooding and that sort of thing. They have not participated in separate rating districts. They have not cared. All they've done is if a bridge washes away, then they pay the cost. And this has left local government utterly exposed and protecting what are really government-owned or government, the government has a share in, for example, Kiwi Rail, NZTA, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's only fair that we should say, come on guys, let's be fair and equitable about this funding. And I actually like the way the submission is tended. Well done.
Thank you. Further speakers for or against? No right of reply required. I'll put the motion on in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, Tony Richard. Item number 7, Creative Communities Grants Assessment. And Claire, we have an attendance. It's a recommendation in the body of that report. Shall we deal with that first? No. Any questions?
I've got a question, if that's okay. Thank you. Through the chair, just what's JMS Developments? Well, just because it's quite a large amount, they've requested 10,000, granted 5,000 plus 5,000 location dependent. So just wondering what that meant.
Yes, so through the chair, JMS is Justin Skilling, who has the triangle, and 5,000 is for a mural around the triangle, and he applied for 2 murals. The Creative Communities Committee suggested another mural at another location, so he is to get back to the committee if he's found another location that's outside of the triangle area. They're keen to spread murals around.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillors, questions? Staveley Campsite, what do they wish their funds for?
So they are having a artist in residence, so they'll be doing training and looking at enhancing that area with the arts. So they've given them half of the application at this stage, and they're to come back and report to the committee about how it's gone over the next 6 months, and then the next funding round they will be able to apply for the second amount of that project.
Yep. Councillors, any further questions? Lane?
If not, I'm quite happy to move recommendation on page 31.
And seconded, Councillor McMillan. No debate. I'll put the motion on in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Gets carried. Thank you. You're clear. Mayor's report. Mayor's report there. Take it as read. Could give you an update on the Regional Transport Committee, which I was, Councillor Cameron.
I was interested in Eugenie Sage and your conversation with her. You've just got that you have good discussions. What was her sort of position on those things? For example, the RMA and the Three Waters and things.
Very good listener.
So she had no opinion.
Oh, yeah, yeah, she was listening. There was 4 or 5 councillors there. They may like to comment.
Yes, you know, she was. She's now the Green Party spokesperson for local government. So she was doing a tour, as I understand it, to try and understand views that are uppermost in councillors' minds.
Okay.
And so she was discussing a range of views, but primarily she was there to hear what issues were of concern or were pleasing us, as opposed to trying to tell us what she thought. So it was a good free-ranging conversation, but she was primarily here to hear what we thought rather than tell us what she thought.
So did she make an undertaking to go and talk to Minister Mahuta with regards to what other councils, including us, were commenting on? And
No. I think she was very much in her capacity as the Green Party local government spokesperson,
Thank you.
as opposed to coming here to be a conduit to the minister.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I've just got a question on all the emails that I presume all the other councillors have been receiving regarding the Three Waters, and I think that's come through from Groundswell, maybe. Has there been a formal reply to them? Because I know one of the questions is that we withdraw from LGNZ.
Yeah, I have drafted, well, not been undrafted, so I have got a letter which has been replied to them, but they keep coming all the time, so that would have been up to date as of probably a week ago. I can send you the letter out to see what the response was.
And would that letter go to Groundswell as a whole, or are you replying individually to everyone?
You can reply individually to the emails that come in. If you didn't send an email in, you'll get no response, because we don't know who to respond to.
Okay.
It doesn't say that Groundswell was behind them. No, we just respond to the email address that was there. Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to Eugene Sage, I met her once before and I didn't think much about her, but having her now serious in Wellington, I was not impressed. But while she was here that hour, I was just really blown away with her. She knew a lot about this district. She asked good questions. She got good answers. I really enjoyed it. It was certainly.
Councillor Rawlinson.
And I was going to say, comment too, that she appeared to be, yes, she did know quite a bit, but she learned a lot while she was here, but she was very receptive and seemed to be on a fact-finding mission of our district. I was impressed with her too. On that note, I'm happy to move the receipt of your report.
Not there yet.
Not there yet, sorry.
No. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question with regard to all these emails we're getting, and it's well into the 40s now. Are we obliged to reply to that? Because personally, I just have, I take no credibility out of them at all. Like, there's 41 people said exactly the same thing, and so in my eyes, they have no credibility at all. If they'd approached me personally or picked up the telephone and talked to me or sent me a text, can I come and see you? Well, then I certainly would have, but to have that's spam. That's just spam emails. Are we, perhaps you could advise me, are we sort of obliged to reply to that? Or?
Well, they have written emails to us all, and they've taken the time to do it, and some of them are slightly different. if you read them, slightly different. And when I decided to respond, it probably only had 5 or 6, so it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
By the time we responded, probably up to 20. If we're going to get to 5,000, we'll have to pull the pin on it, but we're not nowhere near that at all. So I think it's my duty to reply to me, but we'll send you what the letter is that we've sent.
Oh, well, I'll leave it in your hands to reply on my behalf.
It's not time consuming.
Good.
It's the little mouse clicking a couple of times and back it goes. So that's it. Who have we got next? Councillor Wilson.
Yes, Neil. Cannabis, a big hit. What's that about? And the Canterbury Hydrogen Project, what were they?
Yeah, cannabis. That was a Blink webinar. Blink is Lincoln, and it was 3 speakers presenting, scientists, the grower, and a scientist, marketer, suggesting or wanting to develop the markets up, saying it could be the next big thing that we grow. Listening to it, and I listened to it, it was a webinar, so it's on the computer. Cannabis has grown all over the world. I think if I don't know if we're going to reinvent the wheel. There might be a little niche market for someone to do, but it was quite interesting to listen to what it was. And it's not the it was more the cannabis. It's got the THCs out. Yeah, it's that one.
Not wacky Becky.
No,
It's CBD.
that's the one. Yeah, thanks. On hydrogen, yeah, they've been working with the economic development manager on that, looking at developing a hydrogen, converting water and electricity into hydrogen is in development stages at Rakaia. As it develops further, then we'll keep you informed. It's not our project. We're assisting with the economic development manager to help the parties get where they need to, give them advice, where to steer them. I think Joe Luxton was sitting in on that too. It says it does. Yeah, Joe Luxton was in. So she's going to take some information back to the minister, and they're looking for some funding to progress it. So, yeah. Carolyn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for all the work you do for us. With regards to the emails, I have replied to them all. I figure everybody's taken the time to write the jolly emails, and they're on a topic that they feel very passionate about, so I reply to them. It only takes me 2 seconds. I have a query. First of all, I think the council meeting, you got a typo down there, Neil, on June the 22nd. I think it's the 1st of June today with the council meeting. And the other thing was, I'd like to congratulate you on your conversation with Grant Robertson, and I think your messaging around that has been spot on. And yeah, well done getting his words out to our community, because I think people have taken some solace from that. Yeah.
Yep, it is June the 1st today, isn't it? Yeah, so that's all good. I'll just give you an update on the Regional Transport Committee, because when I wrote this, I hadn't had the meeting, but have Nia, and we discussed at the Regional Transport Committee bilingual signs are coming. As signs get replaced, they will become bilingual. And it also discussed at that meeting the interim speed limit plan for Methven, but James also captured that. And the intersections report, which is Waka Katahi's doing, should be coming to the next regional. The staff have a regional transport committee as well. They have a different name for what they call their one. But in July, there's been some work done on intersections. So we were discussing intersections, how to make them safer. And also there's an investigation going to commence in the next probably year on a commuter rail service between whether it's Rangiora, Christchurch, or Rangiora, Rolleston, Ashburton, Timaru, or there's going to be some work done on it to see if it could possibly be feasible. Another thing that I had put into the Regional Transport Committee was a request for a report to be done about the maintenance of our roads in the district and how they are being underfunded. And I've asked for and got support from all the mayors of the district to request that the Transport Officers Group at the next meeting, this is the recommendation, look at the current funding mechanisms across Canterbury for road maintenance operations and renewals, and to see if they're sufficient to maintain appropriate levels of service, and if not, consider new approaches. So the Transport Operators Group, that's the group I was thinking of before, will be undertaking that, and that'll be ready for the next RLTP, Regional Land Transport Plan. And it's stating the fact that we're not getting enough money for our roads. Yeah, and we can only barely keep up with the maintenance. Anything capital's got to come from somewhere else because we can't afford it. So then that was the Road Transport Committee, and also then moving on to the Canterbury Mayoral Forum. Then the Climate Change Committee put a presentation on. They're relaunching It's Time Canterbury. COVID got in the way. They're going to have the offices in the Ecan building. And I think we have 2 representatives on there now, Liz and Caroline, and they will carry on. We talked about meeting dates for next triennium, and looking at Wednesdays for all councils to align around the Canterbury area, so we can, some are Tuesdays, some are Wednesdays, some are Thursdays, and it makes planning of activities for all mayors difficult, so we're looking at having Wednesday as the council days, obviously up to each council, but as a suggestion. We also had Alan Pregnall there, who's now in the Transport Department. His talk was transport is changing, there's less people driving and there's less revenue, and he also made the point that there's only enough money for maintenance renewals. Capital expenditure on roading will have to come from another place. They know the problems, but they don't know what the solution is yet, and made the point that rural is definitely different to urban. Three Waters, they're undertaking a new advertising campaign coming out soon. What's it going to be like, don't know, but then the transitioning is happening and taking up staff time. Another comment that was made that if we had a change of government, and the new government decided to unwind it, the process going forward, could it be unwound? And they did say yes, it could. They had, obviously they're working along the lines of that it's going to change over on the 24, but the way they see it, it could be unwound if necessary. And that was about it for Mayoral Forum, so that's me tidied up there. Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The signs, is that national or is it regional? And for goodness sake, put the English on top. Because, I mean, majority of us understand an English sign. Are we going to have a great big Mary word with English underneath it on speed signs, towns, everything? To me, it gets overdone when the majority understand the English version. If they want to put the Mary in, good, but don't put it in big letters on top.
They'll only be rolled out as signs need replacing, so no doubt we'll see what comes out in the first sign or two, and there'll be compliments or complaints, I would think.
The other question I've got, are we going to talk anything about the rural Three Waters report from that committee?
I yesterday, I haven't read it. There was a webinar with LG&Z this afternoon, probably about now, is it? It'll be recorded, so we'll get to watch it later.
All I can say is talk about a pro Three Waters this and that. I was most disappointed. All they went through and highlighted how wonderful it was and how good it is, and I thought it was meant to be from a more of a rural. There was a bit of rural in it, but a lot of it was just plain propaganda.
We'll see what the mayors around the country are talking about it as they're doing it now, and we'll get the recording of that. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Different topic altogether, but the Business of the Year Awards, ANZ Business of the Year Awards are on Friday, and I think Council should be congratulated on all the work that they did. It was a fantastic event for those of us that were there, and really good to see the quality of finalists. So yeah, just pass that on. It was, yeah, really good.
Yeah, it was. You did right. Hamish.
Mr Mayor, through you, thank you, Councillor McMillan. It was certainly a splendid event. I just want to acknowledge that the idea came from Bevan Rickaby, who is no longer with us, sadly, and so it was really quite poignant and wonderful to see the culmination of an idea that he had turn into what was a splendid celebration of resilient and successful businesses in mid-Canterbury. So it was at times, quite a moving event, when you reflected on where it had come from. But overall, it was a fantastic celebration. Thank you.
And the Rickaby family was there on the night as well, which was good to see them. Angus.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank you for getting that rural roads thing organised at the Mayoral Forum. I think that's
Regional Transport Committee.
Regional Transport Committee. I think that's going to show up lots of facts and figures that maybe some people don't know about. So, well done. About how they're being. But maybe on the signs, I was just wondering. I noticed not long after I'm asking the question because not long after we named the road Ross Road, the Mill Road sign actually went up. So I guess that'll come down and Ross and Mary will go up, if I got that right. And when it comes to Fairton Road, that's on Fairfield Road, that'll be appropriately signed as well, will it?
I'm sure it will. Who looks after roading? Neil, he's not here. Was it Jane? Is it your department?
It's actually not me. We do the approval part and then notify everybody, but it's the roading team that actually organise the signage and everything with the contractors. And if Fairton Road, sorry, I only half caught what Councillor Mackay said, if the name of Fairton Road is being changed, that would have to go through a formal...
No.
It's just the sign that's wrong.
No. The sign's wrong?
Fairton Road, actually, Fairfield Road goes off State Highway 1, and as you get close to Fairton, apparently you enter Fairton Road as you go through the town. They've come up with the water race debacle about a year or so ago when we closed one out there, and I couldn't find it because there was no sign. So I was out there a wee while ago and it still wasn't up, so that's why I'm asking. And then I thought the question was quite clear about not long after we decided Ross Road, the Mill Road sign went up, and I just wondered when it was going to be changed to Ross Road and whether it would fit the new criteria. But Mr Mayor, I do congratulate you for getting that committee together at the Regional Land Transport to work out the state of the rural roads in Canterbury. Well done.
Thank you. We'll get that checked. Those roads are named as they should be. Yep.
I can answer that.
When did you become the staff member?
It might be worth getting clarification on what type of roading signs will be bilingual. I can't imagine it will be road names. It will be more likely stop signs, give way signs, etc.
I'm not sure, but perhaps the roading department might find out what the bilingual signs were. They never gave us the detail. They just said that when they were replaced, they would be, and it may just be on the state highway. I'm not sure. What could you tell you? Yeah. Caroline?
I think I understood your point. The Mill Road sign had fallen into disrepair and it was replaced with Mill Road as opposed to Ross Road, which we discussed recently to change, Christina Jock's Road to Ross Road. So, but as I understand, after investigation, there's a little bit of a delay in communication between different teams, and the people that do the road sign team had not really caught up with the people that did the name change team. So that was why Mill Road has gone up and not Ross Road. But that is in hand and being sorted as we speak.
Well done.
Thank you.
Roger. And then
thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify the situation for Councillor Mackay, according to ECAN's maps, Fairfield Road starts at State Highway 1 and travels in a southerly direction right down to what I call the Seafield multi-road crossing. So it's Fairfield Road, according to ECAN, all the way down.
So there's no Fairton Road?
No Fairton Road.
No Fairton Road. But Councillor Mackay is saying there is a Fairton Road.
It was explained to us when we closed the water race out at Fairton that according to the cadastral map that's worked by the Ashburton District Council Works and Services team, that there is such a thing as Fairton Road according to the cadastral maps.
But in actual fact there's not.
Well, you've got ECAN and you've got the cadastral map operated, so I guess my point is, Mr Mayor, it's just a little thing, but it's nice to know actually what road you're travelling on, and could someone please get something sorted?
Through Mr Mayor, we hear you. I recall the debate at the time. We will investigate it with our rating team.
Now I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report, and Councillor Rawlinson seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. That takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. I'll move that we move into committee. Seconder, Councillor Cameron. All in favour, please say aye. And we will take a break for